G'day, hello, hi, friends and relatives. It is me, Raymond Jordan Johnson Brown, the host and creator of The Glorious Mess, and I am so excited for another amazing episode. This season has been all about different healing pathways, and sometimes there is less traditional forms of healing, things that we naturally do. Our body keeps the score when it comes to traumatic experiences, and some of the best ways to get over and get through some of these traumatic experiences is to allow the body to move and to release. And so I'm really excited to have my wonderful guest, who some say is my relative, who's a phenomenal, amazing dancer, fitness instructor, icon, stunning, easy on the eyes human being who's just a breath of fresh air. So I'd just like to welcome everyone. Christie, welcome to The Glorious Mess.
Oh my goodness, thank you. What a wonderful intro. I feel like I feel like I have a little bit to live up to here.
Don't worry.
Thank
No,
you. That was beautiful.
all you have to do here is just be yourself. It's the best space.
That is key. Isn't it just that simple? Yeah.
Right? And you heard me in the beginning. I was talking about, I'm excited for this episode because I think when people think of healing, they always think like, I got to go to the doctor. I got to go these routes. But, healing can be so much more, right?
Absolutely. And even healing within movement, as you were just mentioning, that can look very, very different as well. For some people, sitting in stillness is healing. For others, like myself, it is a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more throwing my body all over the place.
And talk to me
is
about
meditative for me.
Did you always, when you were growing up, like were you always a very active person?
Yes. As a child, I was bouncing off the walls. I used to always reenact that scene from Lion King where Mufasa is like hanging onto the cliff for dear life and Scar comes and like sticks his claws in. I used to pretend to be Mufasa and I would dangle from like the highest cupboards and I would rip the like lining off of the cupboards. Or I was a little bit destructive. So yes, my sister called me the feral child.
The feral child. And so now what would your sister call you in your adulthood? Now that and you get to bring that out. And so were you always a dancer, or when did you come into dance?
Actually, no. So I was always so captivated by it. And I would kind of like, do my own thing and play around. But I didn't actually take dance classes until I was in high school. So I think I was 15 and I went to Queen Elizabeth High School. We had a dance program there. And I just decided to enroll. And I remember I saw, so when my mom had passed away when I was 13, as a way to cope, I actually went to Portland, Oregon. I have family there to go and see The Lion King on Broadway. And it like completely changed my life. Here's another, I guess there's these themes of Lion King. I never really put that together.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was like, I have to be a part of this world somehow. Mm-hmm. And so then, when I went to Queenie, I decided to sign up for dance. And the first unit that we did was a West African dance unit. So that was kind of what rolled into me specifically going into into West African styles. And then that rolled into Caribbean styles as well.
Mm-hmm. When you've always been like a cultural dancer, and I think I'm curious to hear your perspective, like as someone who's not from that dominant ethnicity or culture, but yet accesses and gets to learn from pioneers and people who know like the true history of these art forms. Do you feel like it's more therapeutic because there's more spirit attached to it?
Yeah, definitely. I find that like those polyrhythmic songs, dancing to drumming live, the full bodiedness of it. There's just something so profoundly earthy and grounded, and it is extremely spiritual. And there are stories attached to so many of these dance styles. Yeah, I did not grow up classically trained, which, I mean, in some small ways that actually was kind of to my advantage, starting in different styles, because my body hadn't been conditioned to be very rigid, like, no, I don't want to say rigid, but like that extreme control that can come with more like European styles. It was a little bit easier for me to like, bounce my booty and like loosen up my spine and throw my head around.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not to say that like those who are classically trained, oh my God, the stuff they can do is incredible.
Well, no, and I always tell people, like, historically, when we look at like the roots of jazz and these styles, it is in these African grounded, spirit driven cultures that discuss and connect to the ways of being and knowing and living. And that's why they're very therapeutic. I remember like learning West African in Calgary, like such a gift that we have doing dances where we do it at a funeral surrounding death. So it allows us an opportunity to grieve the death and mourn the loss of someone. And I know you had shared that you had that experience, and I feel like that's what the beauty of it is that these ceremonies, we get to experience them in this different way, and they change us. There's this beautiful relationship, the drumming, the groundedness, like it's just truly beautiful. Anyone listening, if you get the chance to go to learn any of these styles from, please make it from someone from those communities or learn from those communities.
Yes.
But get into those styles of dance. And then that always intersected you in fitness too, right? Like, would you say they're both big passions in your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I need to move. Actually, so while I was in university, I got to do a dance and culture study in Trinidad with Michelle Moss, the co-founder of DJD. So, and Sabrina Nas, who's a huge, inspiration and icon in the city as well.
Yeah.
She helped train us a little bit to prepare. Her family being from Trinidad. She's such a leader in that world, in the Afro-Caribbean dance community. She helped train us a little bit. We prepared, did some really quality research before going, and it was a tiny group of us. There was only 7 in total, including Michelle. And we got to study carnival and dance tradition and the grit and the glamour of it, the authenticity of it. And I'll never forget Michelle. We'd often sit and kind of hang out. I was the oldest of the group, and sometimes I would just end up kind of hanging out with Michelle. But I remember her saying, she goes, "You are made to move. You have such an incredible mind-body connection. Like you were made to move. You could do this as a career. Maybe not in terms of like Broadway dancing, like professional dancing, but in some capacity. It's just, yeah.
It's that, and I'm curious because you said it twice in our conversation, and I know we talked about like there's a perception, when you're engaged in the arts and you're engaged in fitness and you appear outwardly a certain way, that then this is the ideal human, and you're healthy because of what's here, not knowing necessarily what's kind of going on internally. And in the in the world of dance, like you've identified, like there's this desire, this perfectionism within the dance. We're like, well, yeah, we're dancers, but I'm not technically trained. Right? Because we discredit ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's like the saddest thing. It's like, wait a minute. No, hey, there's a deep technique in the styles that you have learned and you have, learned and take that time. But talk to me a bit about like how the dark side, if you will, of dance and fitness, and how sometimes that perfectionism can be releasing and healing, but then it can also become harmful.
Oh my goodness, have I ever gone down that spiral? I I definitely so after COVID, I hadn't performed for a while, and like I hadn't really like danced in a group in a long time, and I kind of out of nowhere was asked to participate in this dance, and it was so beautiful. Like the dance itself was amazing, the group was so amazing, but internally I was seriously struggling. I was so insecure about my learning pace. I was so insecure about not having a ton of experience in the style. It was East Indian styles. And I just remember being racked with stress and guilt, and that there is that recurring theme, like, well, I've only been dancing since I was 15. Like, I don't have, that core flexibility and those foundations that some dancers gain as children. And you can kind of feel like you otherize yourself a little bit in that process. But the thing is if you love something so much, it doesn't matter. Like the amount of heart and soul that is presented and delivered in a performance, just simply based on that, it really shines through. I have actually had people think that I'm classically trained when I'm not, because of that, because I'm just so in my zone. But yeah, on the note of things getting a little bit negative, I've definitely I remember auditioning for something one time that was like way out of my experience level, and it was like traumatizing. I was younger, I was like 18, and especially at that age, you're so extra vulnerable. And it was truly traumatizing for me at the time. Presently, now that I'm a little bit more like confident in myself, I would have been like, it's okay. I'm just not at that level, but I came and I did my best. And within the fitness industry too, it's with dance and fitness, there's obviously a ton of pressure in terms of like, well, body image is a big one for sure. You have to, if you don't look a certain way, if you don't have a certain style going, like, do you really belong here? Which is rotten and unfair. And I've definitely felt like that before. I'm super tall and I'm broad and I'm strong and I'm muscly, and being a little bit younger, there were times like you'd go to a fitness class and everyone's like literally up to your leg and like just not the same physiology at all. And don't get me wrong, I love the way I am, I really do. But yeah, it could be a little bit intimidating. It can be at times when you're younger. And
I was gonna say, some of those too are like natural parts of, like, not everyone is made flexible, like we're all like built in these kind of boxes of like, okay, if you want to be like, my mom will probably listen to this, like, she had made a comment like, oh sweetie, like your belly's getting a little bigger, I think you should work on getting in shape. But I was like, Mom, I'm in shape. I'm still in shape. I'm still able to accomplish what I need to accomplish. But like these beauty standards that we see in society of like what is good and what isn't. And then if you have a little bit of excess weight, or, you're a little thick and juicy, they're like, oh, it dances like, oh no, you're not one of us. You're not, you don't belong almost. It's
Well, and that's one of the things about us, the cultural dance communities here, is that doesn't mean anything. It honestly does not. Like, you embrace the shake. You actually, it's funny, when I my body's changed so much on and off throughout the years, and I'm currently quite a bit leaner than I have been in the past, and it was like really discombobulating for me to go to West African and Afro-Caribbean dance styles, because I just don't have the same stuff to toss around. You have to kind of like relearn how to work your body, and like certain moves just look different, and that's something that is so cool too. Like particular choreography just looks different on different people's bodies, and it's really, really freeing to be able to own that.
And that's the beauty of like a dance that is rooted in, I would say, an experience versus a performance, right? Because all shapes and sizes can show up. But when we come to the working world, sometimes in dance too, we start to say like, well, it needs to look all this way, and then the cast needs to be the same height, and they all need to be the same size because we want everything to look right. But then in these brilliant styles, we see, no, the beauty is in the diversity of the approach, that you can see the same skeleton of movement, but the flesh and the bones of it are so unique to the artist. But yet we're all experiencing the same thing. And I think that's like the magic of Caribbean styles, of the West African styles that we grew up on at Decidedly Jazz. Like that was really, I think, the power those styles had.
Yes. Yes. And it also gives different people like really an opportunity to shine like in a collective piece as well. It like for those who are viewing a performance and like you said, an experience on a stage, it gives the audience something to really take in too. Like maybe it's a cliche word, but the diversity is really, really stunning. And yeah, you can just channel your energy in different ways, and let the viewer experience those energies in different ways too.
And that's a beauty. And that's why I say like these, and we talked about it, like when you like experiencing the loss of your mom and having to grieve that huge, event. How did dance and fitness help you to work through that uncomfortable emotion?
Oh, this is where I might get a little emotional. Well, growing up, like my mom was very sick from before I was even born. Like she started showing signs. She had Pick's disease. For those who are listening, it's Pick's is quite rare, and it wasn't recognized by the Alberta healthcare system at the time. Way later, it was actually professors at the University of Calgary who diagnosed my mom. So it wasn't even like a part of the healthcare system at all here. And that was a big mess. But it's similar to semantic dementia. So it's neurodegenerative. I knew there was something very wrong with her when I was like 3, 4. And so as a very small child, like, and my sister too, we both kind of started, our attachment styles started to be profoundly reshaped in a bit of a scary way. The roles kind of switched. So we assumed a more authoritative parental role. And then as time went on, people like, well, Jeff Follis.
Yeah.
Jeff moved on to my block, and Jeff's also extremely artsy and amazing.
Yeah.
And his parents, his mom, and my friend Brenna's mom as well, but they kind of swooped in. So I had these very nurturing maternal figures offer help. And then as I got older and that need for creative movement and expression, I end up start taking dance classes at Free House. And that's where I met Amanda Bonnell and Deanne Walsh. And these women, I was like 15 and everyone else was like a lot older than me, like considerably older. I remember like on the last day of the first semester that I did, they had a wine night and I couldn't drink. So they brought like sparkling juice for me.
Yeah.
But I swear to God that group of women, and also I just want to say too, like Deanne and Amanda not being a part of not being African descent, they're extremely aware of how lucky and they always credit who they've learned from and that we're guests in the style. But yeah, just being around these really earthy, fucking cool, bold, loud, boisterous women. It, as a teenager who had gone through, my mom had died when I was 13. So being a teenager and not really having like the most rock solid and just struggling a lot with like accepting nurturance from others. But yeah, having some broken attachment styles, especially with women, that was major for me. Women became a little bit less scary for me. Women became warm and approachable and also just fun as hell. Like it did so much for my confidence. I honestly don't think I would be nearly as confident and like well developed as I am without having that throughout the remainder of my high school years.
And you're bringing an important part of like, not only is it movement, but when you think of like, remember the pandemic when we were like moving, I don't know if you were doing this, but I was doing like the videos, like F45 videos at my house, and it was so isolating. And so like, I think an important part of healing and grieving any form of loss, like, is to remind the self of the community,
Oh, huge. Yeah. We're social creatures. Like we need it.
Yeah.
We are wired for that connection. And that doesn't mean like, I love that we're talking about this because that doesn't mean that you have to be having a full blown conversation with someone to really connect with them. Like you speak through your body as well. And that, there's just something so unifying about moving together to music. As simple as it sounds, it's like really wonderfully complex in terms of developing bonds. And I really did need that. Something, and I'm not sure like if anyone who happens to listen to this also went through an early parental loss, but I've done so much research around this to make sense of my own experience. And one of the key things is those of us who've gone through that, we carry an extreme it's an extreme loneliness throughout the rest of our lives, just because of because of what happened, basically. Because you see one of your core parental figures, this source of support, decline, and the world suddenly isn't so safe. But getting through that loneliness, it can be very insidious, and it is so important to be a part of social activities, like this. And and like we were just saying, like it's not like you have to go and spend the whole day just chatting with people, chatting. Like sometimes it's even easier to connect without words.
And I was doing a workshop here in Montreal, and I started the class with this exercise where you had to tell a partner about your day using only your body, no words. And we're so...
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was, I honestly, I'm like, I wonder how I didn't participate because I got to witness the magic, but I remember thinking like, I think I would be really uncomfortable doing this. But I always tell people like,
my God,
that discomfort is so beautiful. But yeah, there is ways to engage and connect. And when we're so isolated and so disconnected, but like collectively, even right now, feeling these real losses in a multitude, and the layers of loss that continues after experiencing something so, when you were so young. And it's really just so important that we find different ways. I said in the beginning, like, that there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score, and like, that's why I love movement. That's why I love motion, because when an energy, a trauma is stored, when it exists in a space, it needs release. But we can't release because we can't release in isolation, because we need to know what we need to work on, and in order for things to come up, we have to be in relationship to other people, right?
Well, and yeah, just like your body keeps the score. Your body will 100% tell you what's up. And certain movement, like I have absolutely fallen into that pattern of just crushing myself with high intensity exercise, trying to get away from big scary feelings that I just had no idea how to deal with. And I have, and it's so interesting. Like when I've been in those states, I actually fall away from dance. It's like I tend to lean really hard into like activities that I don't actually love that much. It's like the most bizarre like coping mechanism. It seems so bad. It is kind of is backwards. It's just like I've got to like I've gone into that state where it's like I have to torture myself away from feeling these things. Like maybe if I bite the bullet and do this, I don't have to deal with this. Like that might be what's happening on a subconscious level. Yeah, I don't run anymore. Let's just say that. I used to be a freak. Oh my God. People would come up to me and be like, what are you training for? And I'm like,
Life.
life.
I'm training for life.
How to,
And if you
how to
think
get away from scary feelings.
Right. And there's that idea. There's this beautiful book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And my mom used to tell me that quote all the time because I felt like for a long time, like I always say Montreal's the first place that I'm like, okay, I feel like I have a home here. I have this life here and I feel grounded and I feel safe in. Whereas my whole career, I think I was always running. And so in the same way, running from these uncomfortable emotions, wherever you go, there you are. And so as much as there's beauty in that release, that movement, getting it out, there's also a balancing act that we have to play to come back to stillness and find that, like, you know, people are like, I just want to feel peaceful or I just want to feel happy. It's like, well, that's in the stillness. That's in being in your body and present. And it's, and again, sometimes it's scary. And so then we push to go running or go and we can push ourselves into these
I know.
dark places. And the scariest thing I think about it is that the world says that that's a good thing. If you, Christy, wake up at 5 a.m.
definitely.
and go for a run for 2 hours and then you
Oof.
post it on your story, everyone's like, wow, Christy's done well and I didn't.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I know. Like that whole I know you and I have talked about this on another occasion, but like that whole like 5 a.m. club thing, that is the biggest BS ever. That is such a lie. It is a myth. Like for me, I can't function at all like until past at least like 8:30 a.m. I'm not wired that way, and that was another thing. I actually did try to force myself into that early morning grind, whatever thing. And yeah, you kind of have this like sense of reward for a little bit, but then your body crashes and burns and it's not good. Not a good look. And I think just kind of going back to indulging excessively in activities that really aren't quite my thing and veering away from dance, I think something I like I've always struggled with is that emotional processing side of things. Like as a kid, we just tuned things out. We kind of dissociated, had no idea how to deal with what was going on in front of us. And then it all kind of came tumbling out later in life in various forms. And it's like insomnia, eating disorders, like you name it. I've been there. And I do think because I feel so myself and so connected to myself, that is part of why I would avoid the activities that would force me to feel the things that I needed to.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That is so interesting. And it ebbs and flows. And I think that's another beautiful takeaway is that like it ebbs and it flows and it shifts, right? We're constantly playing this balancing act of like what is helpful and useful and what is causing me harm. And when we're entering into burnout phase, what do I really need? And you're also balancing that in relation to society and society's pressures of what is success and not success, what is healthy and not healthy. You know, we're always as individuals having to balance these big ideas that are bigger than us that have nothing to do with us. And the secret, I think, really is to coming back to self, finding your, as you said, like that empowerment, that inner peace. That's a game changer. Once you can get there, my God, you're fucking limitless at that point.
Yes, yes. It definitely takes a lot of like dismantling the narrative around you. I know like health, wellness, fitness, whatever, it's such a huge, convoluted industry. And especially like we're bombarded all the time on our apps with imagery and slogans and sayings. I hate that no excuses thing with my whole soul. It's so stupid. I just can't stand that.
Well, it's rooted in an idea that's like
It
inhumane
is.
when you really think about it. Like we look at extreme versions of inhumanity, and we have no problem saying like that is inhumane, but we have no problem treating ourselves so inhumanely when we feel like we need to take a step back from things. And that's like the sadness. But the system we live in loves to make a profit off you, loves to put a certain idea on you, and so again, becoming conscious of the stories and being able to, a big part of like cognitive behavioral therapy is like catching the thought and catching the story, and then by catching it you can then rewrite it. So for myself, I often have to, like, if I'm experiencing loss, or I sometimes go into like a different plot, I have to catch it, and then I need to journal about it, and then I usually need to meditate, and then I need to usually shake, like a somatic therapies, different like ways of like, there's this really like, I just love shaking. It probably looks wild on the camera, but like, I just love shaking my chest. It's because I feel a lot of discomfort in my throat and my chest. And so when I feel it, just touching those body parts, but it's such a release. And that's why I love, again, like West African and like the live drum and the effect it has on my body. It's so beautiful. It's so brilliant. It helps me get through so much.
Well, yeah, it definitely clears your head, and like, and I think something that you and I probably both really, really connect to and like love about it as well is that the purpose is so different than like, there's so many workout classes and all these types of physical activities that are like, oh, burn like 500 calories, like torch this and get abs of steel and whatever the heck. All these, lofty, very, very aesthetic surface level promises, whereas the intention behind doing some of these dance styles and being a part of those communities is completely different. It's like, express yourself. Like, I don't freaking know how many calories that I'm burning. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's not the point here.
Well, when you quantify the human, you become a product. I think that's one thing that I think I'm really becoming awakened to in my experience is like how much of our existence is informed by us as products to continue to help a system make money and right? And so when you start to quantify your calories and quantify things, it's inhumane. It's not natural to how we were evolved to be.
Well, and it's so like in some, evil ways, it's so brilliant because we are obsessed with numbers. Like, especially in the age of social media, like our brains just love the gratification that comes with these higher numbers. And we accredit them to our self-worth. Like, it's like new currency. It's another form of currency that you can own and possess. Where was I going with this? It's gone.
It's gone.
That's kind of the gist of it, is that we excessively attach our self-worth to these very external measures. Oh, what I was going to say is that it something that I've noticed with myself, like I'd be lying if I didn't say I've experienced this, is that when you become fixated on those metrics, it takes you out of your body. It puts you so heavily in your mind and you're kind of like removed from the process and the enjoyment of the movement. Like, it's crazy. I mean, I have a Garmin. Like, I love my fitness watch, but I can't, like, it's just like having a phone. Like, there was life before this.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I was such a different person before having access to all these measurements.
These tools to measure yourself. Yeah,
you
but
know.
then again, it becomes a way of controlling yourself. But if you have to control yourself, not to say you shouldn't have control over yourself, but if you feel like you have to use these quantifiable measures to inform your actions, I'd argue that you are living here and you are disconnected from here. And I think that consciousness, that awareness of those things helps us to move through complex things, like knowing who we are and knowing the experience and the system we live in. We have to know both. And I think as we come to a conclusion for today's episode, and obviously your courage in sharing your experience with the loss of your mom, for our listeners
Thank you.
who want to, where would they start their healing journey when it comes to movement? Where would you invite them to start that?
I think you just the best place to start is really within yourself, and with how you perceive yourself and different types of movement. I think so many people are really intimidated if you're not if you haven't had a lot of experience in those types of activities. Maybe you're nervous about being a part of a group activity. Just really try to keep try to take an experimental approach and be like, I'm just gonna try this. I don't have to be anything for anyone. I don't owe anyone anything. I'm 100% doing this just for the experience, to enrich myself. And if I don't enjoy it, I don't have to do it. Like, no one's forcing me into anything. And like, while I do think that, especially like dance for sure is such a beautiful shared experience. If you're feeling a little bit too intimidated, just pop a video on and do it. Do it purely for the pleasure and the experience.
100%. Yeah. Join an online Zoom class, even if you want, like, cause I always say, try not to be isolated, but sometimes you feel safer and comfortable in your home. So go online, go watch a video, like if that's where your starting is, as long as you get that time to get out of here, I think imbalance here is so important. And again, I just want to thank you, Christie, for being so resilient, so courageous, so strong. I hope I appreciate you, and I thank you for this lovely conversation we had today.
Thank you so much. I know for anybody who's listening, I remember seeing RJ kind of from afar, and I was like, that is such a bright, incredible, beautiful soul. Just being 100% themselves, playing around, being a goofball, and also like kicking ass on the dance floor. I've just always thought the world of you. You have a very special place in my heart, so thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Thank you, Christie, for that. And thank you everyone who is listening and has been listening to this whole second season. Healing is complex, healing is messy, but I think that there's a lot of wisdom and nuggets of knowledge that I hope resonate for you on your healing journey. I hope you tune into more episodes, and I'll talk to you next time.